Hi, this is Shannon Green, reporting in from Washington, D.C. on a rainy morning. For those of you who don't know me, I was a graduate student at Cal from the fall of 2007 to the spring of 2012. I was just your typical science nerd graduate student, but once an athlete, always an athlete. And a fellow graduate student of mine convinced me to sign up for a sprint triathlon in the summer of 2009. And to her, I'll actually be forever grateful. I had been a swimmer before and had just kind of started getting into running, but picking up cycling was a whole different beast. But despite the horrible jello legs that I felt coming off the bike in my first triathlon, I was completely hooked by the sport. I trained by myself for about 2 years before finally approaching Dave Penny's and JD when they were coaching one of the Wednesday night swims back at Speaker. And despite Dave Penny's gruff demeanor, I was not discouraged and decided to come try out the team for a couple practices. And within the first week, I was hooked and couldn't have imagined not training in the team setting anymore. I raced for Cal Triathlon in the 2010-2011 season as my first season with the team. Went to nationals with that team in Alabama, and then I served as the training vice president from 2011 to 2012. Since I graduated from Berkeley in May of 2012, I've moved to Washington, D.C. I have a fellowship with the American Society for Microbiology, which I think that career decision was actually influenced a great deal by my experiences at Cal Tri. By serving as the training vice president, I was really able to develop and hone my leadership and organizational skills, which I think honestly played a huge difference in my getting the fellowship. I'd written a couple of paragraphs in my essay about what it was like to organize training camps and training schedules and programs for 60 to 100 triathletes, which is kind of like a lot of the day-to-day work that I do with ASM, where I'm organizing scientific conferences for professors and having to deal with travel logistics, lodging, and all types of educational and promotional materials. So really a lot of the skills that I developed with Cal Triathlon have carried over to my job. Some of you guys who are students might be worried about making the transition from school to the real world. And I can actually say that in my experience, moving towards a 9-to-5 job actually worked really well for me in terms of maintaining my triathlon training. I'm a creature that thrives on routine, and that was something that I didn't really have as a graduate student. Every day was completely different, and so it was kind of hard to put together a really consistent schedule week to week because things were always varying. But with 9 to 5 and living only 3 blocks from work, so I have literally the world's shortest commute, I can easily work out in the morning and in the evening, and still have time for a little bit of a social life. So it's actually worked out pretty well for me. And in addition, my boss is great. She's very supportive of my athletics, and so if I tell her, hey, I need to go do a really long run this morning, I'm going to come in a little bit late, and leave a little bit later that day, she doesn't mind. We also, like I said, schedule scientific conferences actually around the country, not just in D.C., and she's been super supportive of my training, and we were actually planning one of our conferences to be in San Francisco when I'll be coming back to California to race in Vineman 70.3. So she's been incredibly supportive. I don't know if other bosses would help you out as much as my boss has, but it's worked out really, really well for me. When you leave the Cal Triathlon family, you can feel kind of adrift because you're used to having workouts scheduled for you. You know where all the training is going to be. You've been riding and running on the same roads for years. You know everything really well, and you're comfortable with it. And so when you move to a new city, it can be a little bit daunting. So I would offer the following advice: to just go online, look up if there's local tri clubs. Triathlon is really exploding across the country, and most cities will have a triathlon group. if there's not a triathlon club per se, you can look for masters. Swim groups are great. You look up local bike shops that are going to be near where you'll be living. Often those local bike shops will have weekend rides. That is a great way to get to know local cyclists as well as learn the routes. That was what I did. And so in my experience, I just went online. I joined DC Triathlon. And I'm actually not, super active with the group, but it enabled me to get to know a couple people and learn where the pools were, where some tracks were that you could do workouts. And then, like I said, by going on these local group rides with roadies, I got to know a lot of the local routes. And then on my first ride, I met now one of my best friends, Mindy, and she and I go riding together all the time. So you just need to be open and friendly, and just let people know that, hey, you're new in the area. And triathletes, are a pretty friendly bunch around the country. So that's probably what I would advise. The nice thing about triathlon is it really is, a lifestyle sport. And you can carry it with you for a long time, so it doesn't have to end when you graduate. And that being said, because there is such longevity in the sport, look at some of the 80-year-olds that are doing Ironman still. You don't need to feel pressure to move up in race distance too soon. Really let yourself, settle in and find your groove in sprints and Olympics. And it might turn out that you really are an endurance junkie like I am and have more of a metronome style of racing, which suits me really well for distance events. But give the shorter course racing a try. Doing the long distance events can be pretty rough on your body, and so you want to give yourself as much time to develop as an athlete before you really start to move up in distance. When I look back at my time with Cal Triathlon, it wasn't just athletic development and learning how to be a better athlete and smarter racer and learning how to train better. Oh, hi, Lucky. It really was a family, and I feel like nothing really exemplifies that more than my experience in my final year of Cal Triathlon. I said that I served as training vice president that year, and I didn't really qualify that as being a racer because I didn't really. Some of you might have heard me mentioned as a sort of a cautionary tale. I crashed my bike pretty badly a couple of days before the very first race of the season, Stanford, and I broke my pelvis in a couple places. And from that moment on, I knew that my last season as a Cal Bear was over. And I was pretty devastated by it. But to their credit, all of my teammates completely stuck by me. No one made fun of me too much. The way I was swimming when I first got into the pool about 2 weeks later. I couldn't do flip turns. I couldn't push off the wall at all. And so basically I would have to treat every wall as if I was going around an open water buoy. So it was an incredible shoulder workout. But seeing my legs kind of drag behind me around every turn, I think gave people pause. But to their credit, everyone really, stuck by me and supported me. And even when I came up with my crazy plan of quote unquote racing collegiate nationals after only being off my crutches for a week, again, people might have thought, oh my God, this girl is crazy. What is she doing? But everyone really supported me, and it meant the world to me. And even now when I race, I still wear that blue and gold uniform, and there's absolutely nothing better than, being thousands of miles away from the hills of Berkeley and hearing that go Bears, go Cal when I'm racing, whether it's in Virginia or whether it's a race in Austin, Texas. People still identify with Cal and they'll pick up on it. And anytime you hear those words, it just gives you that little bit of a boost. And it really does make triathlon more of a team and inclusive sport than just individual. When you're out on the course, it's you versus the clock. It really is very much internal, but all those little external things, thinking about your teammates, how they've pushed you in workouts, seeing them on the course is great, whether they're spectating or whether they're racing. And like I said, just hearing that Go Bears is absolutely incredible. So don't feel like when you leave Cal Triathlon as a graduate, you're leaving the Cal Triathlon family, because that's definitely not true. And just as a little side note, some other alums and myself are pushing really hard to try to get an alumni relay going for next year's collegiate nationals. So I'm really hoping that a lot of the alums can come out of the woodwork and really show the incredible depth that we've had in our team over the past few years, and just showcase that and showcase how much love we all have for Cal Tri, that we're willing to come back to nationals year after year and race alongside you guys. So with that said, you guys had an absolutely amazing season this year. I'm so proud to be a Cal Bear, blue and gold forever, and go frickin' Bears.